Hello, friends. Welcome to Science Talk. I am your host, Jim Massa. I want to share with you this article that appeared on the online publication, The Energy Mix, which also incorporates the Climate News Network. The Great Barrier Reef is on the brink of further mass bleaching after a significant marine heat event. So, what's going on here? We see a nice photo of part of the reef. Got some corals, got some fish. This is all in jeopardy. Australian Prime Minister Scott Morrison's recent $700 million pledge for reef protection is a distraction from his reef-killing fossil agenda, environmentalists say. As scientists warn that another mass bleaching event on the Great Barrier Reef is imminent after record high marine temperatures in the spring. Now keep in mind, Australia, their spring is when we have our autumn here in the Northern Hemisphere. Scientists from NOAA are warning that unprecedented heat in the waters surrounding the 2,300 kilometer reef from mid-September to mid-December, basically 3 months, have left the deeply stressed ecosystem in immediate peril of another mass bleaching event, its sixth since 1998. Well, that's what? 24 years? That's basically a mass bleaching event every 4 years on average? That's will destroy the ecosystem right there alone. They can't keep taking these insults. Dr. William Skirving, the senior research scientist at NOAA's Coral Reef Watch, said his team was surprised, shocked, and concerned when its analysis was completed. Years ago, similar analysis brought a team of Australian scientists to tears. I showed the results of aerial surveys of bleaching on the Great Barrier Reef to my students, and then we wept. And that's what ARC Center Director Terry Hughes tweeted at the time. But now there's never been heat stress like that in our records. It's completely out of character and speaks to the fact that the minimum temperatures were higher than the previous maximums. It's almost certainly a climate change signal. Okay, completely out of character. Translation: this is anomalies. This is an anomalous event, and we are seeing more and more of these anomalous events. That's what this sentence can translate to, right? The minimum temperatures were higher than previous maximums. We're definitely in the realm of anomalous situations. Citing the NOAA analysis, the Guardian reports that the reef headed into the summer with more accumulated heat than ever before. Conditions that bode ill for corals because heat destroys the symbiotic relationship between corals and algae, which is, of course, their primary food source and how they get their color. Okay, let me pause there for a moment. A lot of corals that within the polyps specifically are found symbiotic algae that's referred to as zooxanthellae algae, and they're inside the coral polyps, because the corals themselves are deposition of calcium carbonate basically. And then when you look at, for example, okay, right, you look at here, this probably looks like brain coral here. During the daytime, the polyps tend to withdraw into what's called the calyces. Calyx is the singular, right? So, but at nighttime, they extend out, and you can see them with their, the tentacles for feeding, whatever, material, planktonic material floats by. But during the day, when the polyps are withdrawn in the calyces, the zooxanthellae are photosynthesizing. Now, some of the nutrients is passed along to the coral polyps, and then polyps afford protection for the algae. But the polyps, in addition to getting food, some nutrients from the products of the photosynthesis from the algae, the zooxanthellae, they're also filter feeders. That's what they do. So they get into food sources. So while they can survive bleaching and hence starvation, corals will emerge weaker, more susceptible to disease, and reproduce less in the following years. Well, it all depends how you define surviving bleaching and how severe the bleaching is, what is the extent of the bleaching. So this statement needs to be put in context. The Great Barrier Reef may be in its greatest peril yet. The NOAA analysis found that average mid-December temperatures were at least 0.5 degrees C hotter than a corresponding period of any previous summer when the reef bleached. With its focus on preventing water pollution, WWF, I guess it's World Wildlife Federation, Australia's Oceans Head Richard Leck said the pledge was positive news, referring to fossil-friendly Morrison government pledging $1 billion Australian dollars for reef conservation if he's reelected. He said, but that money must be complemented with real action on climate to drive down emissions to begin with. And of course, this decade is critical. Greenpeace Australia's Martin Zabin agreed, declaring astounding that the Morrison government plans to allocate so much money to the reef while ignoring the number one driver of its decline, climate change caused by burning fossil fuels. A separate international team, marine scientists from the UK, the US, Australia, studied the threat global heating poses to the reef systems that are still well enough protected from marine heat waves to allow corals the 10 or more years they need to recover from a bleaching event known as thermal refugia. These spots of reef resilience will all but vanish once global heating exceeds 1.5 C. And they report that in the journal PLOS, P-L-O-S, Climate. Well, okay, that's global heating. Are they referring to overall atmospheric average temperature or oceanic temperature? So that to me needs to be parsed out a wee bit. At present, 84% of coral reefs are located in regions where conditions allow them to withstand the impact of marine heat waves, but this percentage will plunge to 0.2% once global heating breaches 1.5 C. Well, if they're referring to the average temperature, which basically refers to atmospheric temperature, there are some who argue we've already gone past 1.5 C. There is no safe warming limit for coral reefs. Action on climate change causes this decade is critical, said lead study author Adele Dixon, who's a PhD researcher at the Priestley International Center for Climate Change at the University of Leeds, located in the UK. Reef protectors also pointed to the timing of Morrison's announcement just days before the February 1 deadline to submit a Great Barrier Reef progress report to UNESCO. Last year, UNESCO science advisors recommended the reef be classified as endangered, a categorization which would require Canberra to take more aggressive steps to protect the ecosystem. So, there you have it. Great Barrier Reef is under a threat from these marine heat waves. Marine heat wave is basically this high level of increased oceanic water temperatures, sometimes used called a blob, and if the Great Barrier Reef is exposed to another such blob, it's going to spell trouble. And of course, as we 240 zetajoules of heat added to the oceans overall, plus the greenhouse gas concentrations increase in the atmosphere, increasing the trapping. We know what's going to happen. It's going to get warmer and warmer. So such events are going to become more frequent, I hate to say. So I guess this is one of the things where we have to stay tuned and see what happens. Thank you for your time. Hello, folks. This is Jim here with Science Talk, asking you to please subscribe to my channel and to inform others of my channel and of the work that I do. Please share to social media platforms that you use. Also, as a reminder, don't forget to click the bell so that you know when I load up more videos. Finally, I ask that you support the work that I do by becoming a patron at patreon.com. Details in the description box below. Thank you for your support.